Dear students, we proceed with criminal procedure, and I think now this is knowledge area 6. I would desire to refresh your minds on the previous topics. That was area 4, area 5. Area 4 actually dealt with preliminary levels, and area 5 has dealt with institution of criminal proceedings, from where a complaint is lodged, drafting of the charge or the charge sheet, presentation of the same before the court of law, procurement of a witness to attend his trial, the remedies that the accused has, including a right to plea, a right to bail, his right to cross-examine the witness by the execution side, the prosecution side, the right to call upon the witnesses of his own in the case of defense, and the right he has on the mitigation level until the end, where the judgment is dealt with or is delivered by the relevant court. Now, today we are dealing with remedies in the criminal trials, and I'll touch a bit on the side of writs as part and parcel of the remedies of criminal trial. When a judgment is passed by a court of competent jurisdiction, it may be a court of original jurisdiction, or it may be the first court in appeal or the second appeal. There are various remedies an aggrieved person is availed with, be it the prosecution side or the accused person. Now, one of the right remedies, or the remedies as they might be prescribed as per this lecture, there are actually 3. The first one is the right to an appeal, which is a constitutional right. And the second one is the right to revision. And the third right is the right for review. However, the right for review is not applicable in most courts, be it the primary court, district court, high court, but it is rarely employed by the court of appeal. By the court of appeal when there are clerical errors or material errors on the face of record. It is when the right to review can be employed, and it is done only at the court of appeal. Now, the first right that I would like to elaborate is the right to appeal, and the right to appeal is actually carried out in accordance to the hierarchy of the court system, as we had seen in our first lecture, area 4, that we have the hierarchy as per court system, where we have the primary court, we have the district court, we have the high court, and we have the court of appeal. Now, a decision issued by the primary court can be appealed against to the district court. Similarly, a decision issued by the district court can be appealed against to the high court. Likewise, the high court to the court of appeal. Now, that goes as the hierarchy on how an appeal can be preferred by the aggrieved person. And actually, an appeal can either be on order, can be on a sentence, the entire judgment, the findings of the judge. All those can lead to lodging an appeal. It can lead to sustaining an appeal. Now, who may appeal to the relevant court as per the hierarchy? It is any party who is aggrieved by the decision, be it the accused person or the republic, which is on the side of the prosecution. Now, how do we prefer an appeal? An appeal is preferred in a criminal procedure, an appeal is preferred by way of a petition, and the very petition should be accompanied by the copy of the judgment or the order which is to be appealed against, as well as the proceedings. Therefore, when it is complete in terms of the petition, a copy of the judgment or the order which is intended to be appealed against, as well as the proceedings, then an appeal can be preferred to the higher court in terms of hierarchy. We have another good remedy, which is revision. Revision also is preferred in accordance to court hierarchy. It can either be from a primary court, where an aggrieved person can lodge his revision to the district court, or it can be the aggrieved party seeking for revision as to the decision, from the decision of the district court to the high court, as per the court hierarchy. Now, what is the role of having revisional proceedings? The basic role of having revisional proceedings is to enable the higher court or the superior court in the hierarchy to ascertain and to the legality, validity, appropriateness of the records and to the subordinate courts, in order to examine and satisfy itself as to its legality, appropriateness of such proceedings within the very court. Therefore, it is the superior court or the higher court which stands to determine the legality of the decision issued and the proceeding, the appropriateness and correctness of the decisions or proceedings within a given subordinate court in accordance to the hierarchy. Now, what should be the circumstances? Because a revision should not be a synonym of an appeal. When there is a right to appeal, then there can be no way that someone can prefer revisional proceedings. Instead, when there are certain circumstances and to a given decision by a subordinate court, it is when revisional proceedings can be preferred. And to mention a few, there might be a circumstance where the decision is grossly erroneously given. When it is grossly erroneously given, then it can call for revisional proceedings. But when there is existence of non-compliance to the law, then that can attract revisional proceedings. But when the findings of fact upon which the decision is made does not base on the evidence on record, that as well can call for revisional proceedings. But judicial discretion is when judicial discretion is exercised arbitrarily or vindicatively, then a person can prefer revisional proceedings. Now, how does one apply for revision within a given court? It is by way of chamber summons, which is supported by an affidavit of an aggrieved person. Then a person can prefer his revision to a relevant court in accordance to the hierarchy. The similarity now between revision and appeal is that all should be done, both of them should be done unto the higher court, distinct from the subordinate court that issued a decision. That means it should be given by a different court higher in hierarchy, distinct from the court that had issued the decision. Now, the third remedy, which is non-existent unto our laws, but it is applicable only to the Court of Appeal, and it is always done in very rare cases, and it is done within the same court that had issued the previous decisions. Some circumstances, such as rectifying clerical mistakes or errors in a judgment, from accidental or omissions, all those can attract review of the proceedings and to a given court. But what has to be cemented is that review unto High Court, District Court, primary courts does not exist particularly in criminal matters. And review as well may be initiated suo motu by the court or by an interested person. Likewise, revision can be instituted by the court suo motu or by an aggrieved person. Or the two can initiate the proceedings in revisional proceedings. Briefly, those are the remedies in case a person is aggrieved by the decision of a given court. I have said previously with emphasis that I will also deal with a writ. A writ is just an order of the court. And the common writ that we have in criminal proceedings is habeas corpus. And this is a writ which is directed to a person who detains another in custody and commands him, and then the court commands him to produce or have that very person before the court as for it to justify whether the detention or the ability of putting him in custody is lawful or is not lawful. And the rationale for the writ of habeas corpus is to protect the liberty of an individual who is detained arbitrarily without trial. That is the rationale as to why we have a writ of habeas corpus. Now, how does one apply for the writ of habeas corpus? The first thing, any interested person, not necessarily the detained person, any interested person may lodge an application for the writ of habeas corpus. It can be any person who is either related or interested with the affair of the detained person. And the habeas corpus is only a discretion of the High Court. It is the discretion of the High Court whereby an interested person can lodge that very application as for the remedy of habeas corpus. In the course of prosecuting the application for habeas corpus, the first thing is that an application should be presented by a chamber summons, supported by an affidavit, and it should be presented ex parte with a view of seeking leave to present an application for habeas corpus. When the application for leave is granted, then an interested party lodges an application for the order of habeas corpus, where the adverse party, interested person who is either detaining or retaining that very person unlawfully or unjustifiably will be the other party, and they will be vested with an opportunity to lodge a counter affidavit. Then a hearing will follow and the decision will be issued by the court on whether the detaining party has a lawful justification or the detaining party does not have the lawful justification in the course of detaining a given person. Having so said, I have some few references where you can read a book by Masawe, The Law of Criminal Procedure, with special reference to Tanzania. And we have Mchome, 1995, Criminal Law and Procedure, Manual 3 of the Open University of Tanzania. But to cement some ideas, to cement more knowledge, you can go through the shown reinforcement questions, which will assist you in one way or another as a reminder to the entire process in criminal procedure. And that is the end of this very presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.